probably going to push your quiz back. It's not going to be on Thursday.
Oh, yes.
I don't know about that yet, but I split this section into two different ones, just so we can take our time with it a little bit more. So I have a pen. So today we're going to look at surface area of pyramids. So we went over surface area of prisms. We went over surface area of cylinders. Now we're going to go over surface area of pyramids. So a pyramid is a solid with one base. Okay, before when we went over prisms and cylinders, those had two bases, hence the 2b in our formula for surface area. Now our pyramid only has one. So the lateral faces intersect at the vertex. Okay, so those lateral faces, there is a vertex at the very top of your pyramid. So that's where they all intersect, the tip of your pyramid there. So the height is the segment from the vertex that is perpendicular to the base. Okay, so our height, again, we have this perpendicular. It's going to go from, if I look at this picture here, from the vertex, which is at the very top, and it will go straight down, okay, till it hits the base. Okay, and you can see that 90-degree angle formed there. So that is your height, or H value, from the top straight down to the bottom of the base. Now, regular pyramids have a base that is a regular polygon. And the altitude has an endpoint at the center of the base. Okay, so if this is a regular pyramid here, that means all four of your sides are congruent to each other. Okay, that's what a regular polygon is. So since all of those sides are congruent, that means this altitude or height will hit the very center point of your base. Okay? And all of your lateral edges are going to be congruent. Okay, so each of these lateral edges here are going to be congruent to each other. They're going to be the same length. Okay? Lateral faces are also congruent. So those triangles that are formed, all of those triangles are going to be congruent to each other. Okay? And they'll be isosceles. Since all of those edges are congruent, you have two congruent sides for that triangle, so they are going to be congruent isosceles triangles. Okay, the new segment that will be drawn into a pyramid is going to be called the slant height. So that is the height of each lateral face. Okay, that's the slant height. So we will need that slant height in order to find the lateral area and the surface area. So your slant height in this pyramid here, I'm going to highlight it. Okay, that's the height of the face itself. So it goes along that triangle from the top to the base edge. And it makes that 90-degree angle there. Okay, so we label slant height as a cursive L. Okay, your slant height is this cursive L in our formula. So our lateral area is going to be equal to 1/2 P times L. Okay, it is 1/2 because we don't have two bases there. Okay, we just have the one base and it goes all the way around that. So again, your L value here is your slant height, and P is still the perimeter of the base. Okay, so we have the perimeter of the base times the slant height times 1/2. Now surface area, again, we take our lateral area, which is that 1/2 P times L, And instead of adding on 2b, we just add on 1b, because again, there's only one base. Okay, so unlike the cylinder and the prisms, this one has one base. So this is the surface area formula we're using, where P is still the perimeter of the base. Okay, so P is still the perimeter of the base. And that capital B value is still the area of the base. Okay, and then L is that slant height. Okay, so L is the slant height. So we will have to solve for the slant height or the height sometimes as we go through these problems. So that's what we're going to do in letters A and B. We just want to see what the slant height is. So looking at letter A, your slant height, again, is that distance from the top along that lateral face. So that shaded face part of that triangle there. Your slant height runs along that length there. And I know it's really hard to see. I'm sorry. See if my pen works a little better. Okay, so we're trying to find this length right here. And we label that with an L. So to find that, what we can do is kind of create this right triangle, okay, with our height. Okay, so our height goes from the vertex to that center point of that base, right? So if this is the center point, what do you think this length right here is going to be? 5. Okay, it is 5 because it's going to be half of that base length there. Okay, so that length of that triangle on the bottom there will be 5 meters. So now if I have this right triangle and I have 2 of the lengths, what do I use? Pythagorean theorem. Okay, and I'm going to solve for the hypotenuse since it's opposite that 90-degree angle. Okay, so I would have 5 squared plus 12 squared is equal to the slant height squared. Okay, because sometimes when we're solving these surface area problems, we're not given the slant height and you will have to solve for it. Okay, so 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. Okay, that will add to be 169 is equal to your slant height squared. Take the square root of both sides. And our slant height is going to be equal to 13 meters. Okay, and again, that's all I wanted to solve for in this particular problem, is that slant height, so you know where it is and how to solve for that. Okay, questions on letter A? All right, then letter B. This time you are given the slant height, but we're going to solve for the height. Okay, so we're not given this height from the vertex to that center point of the base. Okay, that is your height or H value. Okay, and again, it is perpendicular to that base. Okay, and again, I can create this right triangle with the slant height and the height. So again, what is this length here along the base?
6.
Not 5, but 6. Okay, we have to divide that base length by 2. Okay, so that length will be 6. Our slant height right here, okay, along that triangle is 10. So again, I can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for the height. So this time, since 10 is my hypotenuse, that's your C value in the Pythagorean theorem, we would have 6 squared plus H squared is equal to 10 squared. Okay, because I'm given the hypotenuse length this time. So 6 squared is 36. 10 squared is 100. Subtract 36 from both sides of your equation. So we have h squared is equal to 64. Take the square root of both sides. And our height will be equal to 8. Okay, questions on those two problems? All right, then I do want to get into an example of finding the surface area. Okay, so just like before when we're solving for surface area, I want to find each and every piece of that formula. So find P, find L, and find B. Okay, so first is P. Okay, P is the perimeter of your base. Okay, our base is this square right here. Since this is a regular pyramid, all 4 sides are congruent to each other. So you can take that length of 14 and multiply it by 4. You could add 14 4 times. That works as well. Okay, so our perimeter is going to be 56 feet. Okay, next is the slant height. Okay, your slant height again has to go along that lateral face. So it's going to be this length that I just drew in here. That is your slant height. Now I'm not given that height, so we have to find it. So how can I go about finding that slant height? What did we just do? Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to create this right triangle with the height and the slant height. What's this bottom part? Yep, 7. Good. Okay. Since I'm looking for the slant height, that is your hypotenuse of that right triangle. So using the Pythagorean theorem, I would have 7 squared plus 12 squared is equal to our slant height squared. Okay, so I have 49 plus 144 is equal to L squared. So I have 193 is equal to L squared. Take the square root of both sides. I got 13.9 feet. Okay, so now we have P and we have L. Okay, the last thing that we need to find is B. Okay, B is your area of just the base. Okay, so how can I find the area of that square? What do I do? 14. It's not 14. The area of the base. How do you find area of a square? Base times height, right? But it's just of the square. Do not include 12 as your height of the square. 12 is the height of the pyramid. Okay, so if this is a square and all my sides are 14, that means I'm going to take 14 times 14. Okay? Okay, and that will be 196 feet squared. Okay, so now that I have P, L, and B, I can plug each of those into our surface area formula. Okay, so surface area is equal to 1/2 P times L plus B. So we have 1/2 times P is 56 times L is 13.9 plus B is 196. Again, it's not 2B. Okay, do not multiply B by 2. There's only one base in a pyramid. Okay, so our surface area then should be equal to 585.2 feet squared. Okay, questions? Okay, again, you're just solving for each of those variables within your surface area formula. All right, last one. So with this one, again, we're solving for the surface area. We are given only the height of this pyramid is 10 centimeters. However, that triangle, that right triangle created by your slant height and your height is a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. Guess what we can use then? These right here. Okay, so in this right triangle, this angle of 60 degrees is opposite the long side. Okay, so 10 is going to be your long side. Okay, that means this side right here, opposite that one's going to be a 30-degree angle, right? That's going to be your short side. Okay? And then the one I labeled as L, the slant height there, is your hypotenuse. Now, if you are not given the short side, you need to find the short side first. Okay? So since I'm given the long side, I'm going to use the equation that says long side in it. Okay, so I can plug in a number for it. So that's the one I'm going to use first. Okay, so our long side is equal to the square root of 3 times the short side. And I just want to plug in what I know. I know the long side is 10 centimeters. So plug in 10 for long. Okay, and I want to solve for the short side. So to solve for the short side, to get it by itself, you have to divide by the square root of 3 on both sides. That way it cancels here, and you can plug this into your calculator. Okay, so that short side, I rounded to the hundredths. So I got 5.77. If you round to 5.8, that's fine too. Okay, then I can also find the hypotenuse. Okay, so my second equation here says hypotenuse is equal to 2 times short. Okay, and I'm just going to plug in what I know. Our hypotenuse I labeled as L. So I'm going to plug in L for hypotenuse. And I just found the short side to be 5.77. Okay, so our slant height is going to be equal to 11.54 or 11.5. Okay, so what? That's because you rounded to 5.8. So from here, now I can find P, L, and B. Okay, so P is the perimeter of the base. Okay, so since my short side is 5.77, what is the entire length of that base? It is 11.54. Okay, so you just have to multiply that short side by 2 to get the entire base length there. Okay, so to find our perimeter then, since this is a regular polygon on the bottom, we add up all 4 sides because they're the same, or we can multiply by 4. Okay, so our perimeter is going to be equal to 46.16 centimeters. Okay, next is my slant height L, which we already found to be 11.54. And then we also need our capital B value, which is the area of just the base. Okay, how do I find the area of this base? What should I do? Okay, so since it's a square, we multiply 11.54 times 11.54. And I got 133.17. Okay, so now that I have P, L, and B, I can use my surface area formula. Okay, which is 1/2 P times L plus B. And just plug in each value. So we have 1/2 times 46.16 times 11.54 plus our B value is 133.17. Okay, and I got my answer to be about 399.5 centimeters squared. And make sure when you're doing pyramid problems like this, the only part you divide by 2 is this first part here. Do not multiply these, add this, and then divide by 2. This 1/2 only applies to these 2 that it's multiplied into. Okay, so multiply 46.16 times 11.54. Press enter. Then divide that by 2. And then you can add this on. Okay, you need to follow order of operations when entering that into your calculator. Okay, you can't add on the 133 before you divide. You cannot add before you divide. Got it? Questions on pyramids, surface area? How I did any of those problems?